Dear Ricky, I love you like a brother. I really do. In my eyes, you are a true skeptic and a phenomenal spokesperson for science and the scientific method. We have a common foundation in our way of looking at life, reality, truth, and other stuff. Therefore, I hope and think you will forgive me for what I'm about to do. I've come to deconstruct the work of art that is Karl Pilkington. I've listened to you and him for years now, and as a true skeptic, I really want to find out. You say over and over that he is not a character, that is not made up. I want to believe you, but belief and truth is not the same thing. The search for truth is a pursuit full of pleasure, if you can handle it. I can, and I know that you can too. There are historical records to be excavated about the man known as Karl Pilkington. He's most probably based on a true living person, but the stories about him and the stories coming from his mouth are perhaps not all what they seem. Just because something is told in a podcast don't make it true, does it? So, is Karl made up 100%, or is it made up to 0% and in fact 100% true? I guess that is a false dichotomy. There is an infinite number of possibilities there in between, and my aim is to find, to as good an approximation as possible, where on that scale the truth lies. On this journey, I will also learn and teach the method of historical research. What are the pitfalls and markers of truth in the search of it? There are a number of hypotheses one could lay out to be falsified or to be found more or less likely to be true. One possibility, making a comparison, is that Karl is like Jesus and you are the brain behind him, the disciple like Paul that wanted for his gospel to be known. You are indeed the Bodfather. But what could be the motive? Well, it could be manifold. Good old making fun of, money, chicks. At least Karl needed money when this all got started, for a new boiler and that. Could also very well be the case that Karl is the grand master behind this, that he's had you from the beginning, that he twirled you round his ring finger. You are clever, this we know, but it might be, as you say, that writing the script for this brilliant dribble that comes out of Karl's mouth is an impossible task even for you. That Karl is in fact not only the funniest person in the world, but in fact also the most brilliant actor and mind that ever put its feet on the ground of this planet. Or is just an idiot. And I'm the heretic of this cult, the blasphemer, to be burnt on a stake. But you wouldn't do that, would you? Perhaps I'm even part of some master plan of yours in some strange fashion. Sometimes you work in mysterious ways. My starting point on the Karl scale of truthness is that it's around 40% true. What does this mean? Why? Why is most easily answered using the saying from Carl Sagan that extraordinary claims demands extraordinary evidence. The claim that anyone could seriously be so stupid as to propose that old people should get an injection so as to give birth when they die. This is in fact an extraordinary claim. And as extraordinary claim as saying you can feed 2,000 people with a loaf of bread. Or was it one loaf each? Anyway, the starting point from the skeptical-minded, rational-thinking person must be that the truthness to Karl index is low. I do not have a goal with this search other than finding out the truth, or to get as close to it as possible at least. Whether this quest will find Karl to be a true person or not, or somewhere in between. Anyway, I will become a winner, because either way, the truth is, as is often the case, remarkable. If Karl is real, then he's a gem of lunacy, to be treasured. If he's made up, more or less to 100%, then the creation of Karl is a pure work of art in progress. The likes of it the world has never seen. Now the first episode of my journey will continue to cover some of the background to this quest, some definitions of terms as well as having a look at the method. The background and motivation to this endeavor is the mind of Karl Pilkington. the mind and the sounds it produces. Karl first entered the public scene in late 2001 as a producer to the Ricky Gervais show on XFM, a local London radio station. He entered my world a few years later on a Ricky Gervais video podcast show, shortly followed by daily listens to the Ricky Gervais audio podcast, basically a refined version of the radio shows. So who or what is Karl? That is the question. For those of you that don't know him, I collected a few clips from the best of Season 1 podcasts that you could find for free on iTunes. Just to give you an idea of the depth and width and breadth of this project.
And Karl Pilkington is an ongoing experiment for me, because I've seen him blossom from an idiot into an imbecile.
But my thing with iPods is, now, do we need them? Do you know what I mean? We're living in that era now where we have invented most of the stuff that we need, and now we're just messing about.
They said that in 1900. Someone actually said everything that's to be invented has already been invented. They said that in 1900, and how wrong were they?
See, I was saying to someone the other day about maybe we should look at, if we're going to invent something, right, forget like the traditional way of people having kids, right, the way they, you know, have it away in that. You have a
What do you mean? What do you mean?
No, you know, like the way that, you know, we have kids and stuff. If it'd be good if what happened was to control it is if man and woman, right, they're born and that, they enjoy their life, they learn a lot, they live to be about 78, I think, by that point.
So specific.
Yeah, 78,
No,
yeah.
but by 78, I reckon you've sort of got to that point where you go, do you know what, I've done everything I'm going to do. If you haven't bungee jumped by the time you're 78, you're not going to do it.
No.
You know what I mean? So it's kind of like...
Your hips have come off.
You've done it all now, so I've had my innings.
Yeah.
And then you die, right? So, say if everyone had that, they live to be 78. But then, just as you die...
They give you the bumps.
You get... You have a little baby inside you, and as you die, your life carries on.
Sorry,
How is this happening?
Sorry, are you mental?
No, but don't you think...
I mean, what? I've never heard such drivel.
You're saying that, but if Newton said it, you'd go, interesting.
The method. There are a number of ways one could go about this kind of investigation into the historical correctness of a character and his doings. There are also a number of pitfalls. The first thing in any investigation like this is to collect empirical facts. There are indeed already quite some out there, and one might think that this amount would make it easier, but in fact sometimes more facts makes it even harder. Simply because all facts are not what they seem. Facts. Some contradict one another, some might be planted, some distorted, and some misrepresented. I could of course simply ask Karl, but then again, who'd believe an idiot? The data would then need to be sorted, put in context, analyzed, checked for consistency, washed and classified as more or less reliable. The starting point must be to disprove the official version, that Karl is in fact not a character, a real person who comes up with what he says himself, or at least his brain does it, whoever is in charge. With this starting point, the evidence can be presented against the official version. In the same time, of course, giving room for flaws in the arguments and other sources of error. In the process, the Karl index of truth would go up and down, and in the end hopefully stabilize, and a conclusion could be drawn. Not about absolute truth. Science, inasmuch as this process that I started could be called science, does not deal with absolute truths, even though it's always pining for it. When it is deconstruction time again, we will look at the uncertainties of this investigation. For example, the first show in the online archive does not seem to be the first show. At one point, Ricky says that they were better the first couple of weeks, but now they're rubbish. The online record, including Wikipedia and other sources, however, give little room for several weeks of shows before the so-called first show, since it's set to start in November 2001. So the question to be answered is, what were those first shows like? What hides in there? And can we in actuality find out? We will also look at some possible conspiracies. Is the online archive actually planted by Gervais and or Pilkington in order to obscure what actually happened in the very early days? Well, listen next time and perhaps we will find out together.
What body parts can you live without?
What, so...
With a brain.
He's coped this far.
So the bits that I've got now, if I had to get rid of
Yep.
one of them,
Yep.
what wouldn't I miss?
Yes.
See, I did a bit of an experiment on this, right?
Brilliant.
It's my job at home to wash up, right? Suzanne does...
She gives you all the really big responsible ones.
Yeah.
She sort of like pays the bills and wires the house. And you go, what can I do? And you can go, well, you can go and play with the worms in the garden.
Yeah.
So anyway, so it's my job to wash up and that, right? And I thought to sort of make it interesting and stuff. I thought, I wonder if I can do it, right? If I didn't have any thumbs.
And so what did you do?
So I just sort
You
of
sliced off your thumbs.
I just sort of held them in, and it's amazing how, like, it took me ages. Just having that one thing gone.
Well, it's part of our evolution, the opposable thumb. Basically, that's when we soared. These are milestones in human evolution. The opposable thumb, the forward-facing eyes, the upright. These are massive things in taking us out of the animal kingdom.
And one day, Carl, you'll walk upright.
But what do you mean about eyes facing forward? You mean before we got here, there was people whose eyes were looking in their head? It's only because I've got no hair, though, isn't it? That's why it gives that effect.
No, it's perfectly round your head. It's perfectly spherical head. Your face is slightly too big for it. It almost goes over the sides. Perfectly round head. Pug little nose. Funny gimp eyes with no expression. Hangdog look. Like a little mouth, like a little lamprey, not formed, not human formed. The way your expression is like you've had a lobotomy. Your head goes weird at the back. It's got a little nod in it, like it's really strange, your face, and you're stupid.
We've had a lot of emails saying that. I mean, I think he's just paraphrasing, but...
One of my favourite, on the same subject is, a camel is a horse designed by committee.
What do you mean?
Well, it's having a go at the camel, and it shouldn't. But it's just, it's just a metaphor. And if you wanted to design a horse and you had that vision, but you let 12 people in the room have their say, it wouldn't come out as you wanted it to do, and it wouldn't be as good. A vision is more perfect than committee, because everyone having their say, it becomes anodyne, it becomes compromised. Whereas the best things you can do is have an idea and have a vision and auteur that.
Rick, can I just say now, I can tell from his look that he's thinking, which committee designed the camel?
Well, I'd say, why would you request the ump bit? Because that's just going to get in the way, isn't it? I've always said that about a lot of animals. It's like we've doubled up on a lot of them. We've chatted about elephants and mammoths, one or the other. And that's the same with a camel. I'd have that up there as what they're doing. They were good years ago, in the Jesus times and that. Don't need them now. You know what I mean? We've moved on.
Well, not people who use camels to cross deserts. Carl, what would you change if you were in charge of what kids are taught in school? Right, because, your school experience was a bit iffy. You got very bored, didn't you? You got very disillusioned by school.
Yeah. What I'd do, right, is, instead of sort of teaching kids about 2 and 2 and that, which is 4, right?
Well done.
Show off.
I think they should be asked more questions that make them think rather than something that has just got an answer.
I totally agree.
Right? So,
teaching them the quest for knowledge, inflaming their imagination.
But just freaking them out a bit as well. Just going like...
See, I knew that's where it was going. Because as soon as you started talking, Rick, I was thinking you're thinking some of the big existential or philosophical questions. You know, does it mean to be human? What does it mean to interact with other humans? To be a human?
Or teaching them sort of like philosophy on a basic level, that, teaching them the love for learning. So, get them back to a roots level so they want to learn and then they will learn, as opposed to just teaching them facts.
Whereas...
He was thinking, freak them out a bit.
Yeah.
No, just like, like I read the other day, and someone sent it in on email, like, how there's a dishwasher that's been found on Mars.
Rubbish.
Whoa, what?
But it's not true.
So tell them that,
But it's
say,
not true.
Go home and write about it. How did that happen?
But it didn't happen.
Well, it did happen. It was in a science magazine.
No, it didn't happen. There's not a dishwasher on Mars.
Why not?
Because
What do you mean, why not?
How did it get there?
Just have them wandering around, just picking people off.
That's what. Just sort of random and that. Because I don't know. I mean, I'm not wishing that anyone I know dies and that. But all I'm saying is, I don't know anyone who's died for ages.
Right.
Whereas if a dinosaur was knocking about, you'd go, Neil's gone missing.
Yeah.
And
Nora's had her head bitten off by a...
Whatever. I just think then it is survival of the fittest, which is, we've lost all that now. You don't even have to be fit to survive. They just keep sticking a new lung on you. Or... Do you know what I mean? They can do too much now to keep people going.
They just keep sticking a new lung on you.
Lawrence from New York says, I was wondering how Mr. K. Pilkington would interpret this famous saying of philosopher Ludwig Wittgenstein. The quote is, if a lion could talk, we could not understand him.
Even if he's English.
And you see all the other humans.
No,
you see your mates, right? They're listening to the iPod. What would you do?
But no, that's what I'm saying, though. Beetles are different because they do tend to hang about with each other. A slug's always on its own. It's a lonely insect, isn't it?
It's not an insect.
Alright, what is it?
A mollusk.
Right, they're lonely. I've never seen a load of snails all together or slugs wandering about, whereas beetles seem to knock about in crowds. But what I mean is, I don't know what I mean.
I have not been granted permission to publish the clips from the Ricky Gervais show in this episode of the podcast, so if there are any complaints from the Ricky Gervais people, or if you find that this show has been put off the air, it is of course due to the major conspiracy going on about the hiding the true identity of Karl Pilkington. So that would of course just prove my point.